Hi, Internet. I am Emily S.W.
Sam.
And we are here with episode number 2 of the Podcastle.
Dun dun dun.
This week, I'm not gonna say or whatever after every sentence. Anyways, in addition to not saying or whatever, this week's episode is about Ann Radcliffe's classic Mysteries of Udolpho.
Yes.
Okay, I was just waiting to see if you had something to add.
I don't have anything to add to that.
So, Mysteries of Udolpho is another one of those pinnacle Gothic stories.
We've got, like, pillars of Gothic, right? The very well-known, very influential, exemplary novels of the genre.
So we started with the OG. Obviously, you gotta start at the beginning.
A very good place to start.
But this is an actual novel.
Yeah, this
chunky
is
boy.
Hefty. I've got a physical copy here, and the audiobook version of this one was 30 hours, as opposed to 4 hours for Otranto.
Should we do a little ASMR?
Yeah, sure.
People like that, I hear.
You know, I almost made my tea making little clip in ASMR, but I thought of it too late, and I had a YouTube video playing in the background. Because I was watching it back, I was like, oh man, you can hear like the
clink,
the tea getting put into the diffuser and then pouring the water.
Yeah. Next time, TSMR. Just one word.
TSMR.
Smush it together.
Yeah.
Back to the matter at hand.
The Mysteries of Udolpho was published in 1794, which is roughly 30 years following the Castle of Otranto. Both of these stories are landmark publications of Gothic fiction.
One of the most notable differences is that Ann Radcliffe, woman.
And for the story, that means
a lot more woman-centric in Udolpho, and I think women have slightly more agency. Emily does stuff, but also things happen to her. So, like...
You know, that's really kind of ironic that you say that, because while I was listening to the radio play that you sent me the link to, what I was thinking was, wow, Emily really has got no agency at all.
She has more agency. I'm comparing it to Otranto, though.
Case of Matilda and Isabella, who are primary female characters of Otranto. Matilda made the choice to help Theodore. Isabella made the choice to flee from the castle.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's Emily's agency is about that level. She chooses Valancourt.
Mm-hmm.
She escapes with help, and it's about the same for both stories.
Yeah, I guess that's true when you put it that way.
The end result, though, is quite different.
I don't know if you've noticed this, Internet. My name is Emily, and the main character in Mysteries of Udolpho is also named Emily, so I think I might be projecting a little bit, because I want her to have more agency as an Emily.
The Emily Alliance?
Yes. Team Emily all the way. That was me hashtagging with my fingers.
I think that when it comes to Gothic fiction written by women, the primary thing, and this is not just with this book, not just with Ann Radcliffe, but most Gothic fiction we see with a woman author, they tend to put real explanations for the events of the book. The supernatural isn't real in their stories.
Ann Radcliffe is very well known for this. All of her books, not just this one, which we'll talk about some of her other works at a later episode. Mm-hmm. They have supernatural elements and spooky, ooh, is it a ghost? What's going on? Oh my gosh. But then by the end of the book, they all have logical, earthly explanations.
Yep. Jane Eyre was the same way.
Which is interesting in the case of this book, Mysteries of Udolpho, contrasting it to Otranto, because they are cited as the two earliest main pillars of Gothic literature. And a lot of Gothic literature that comes after is referencing either Otranto or Udolpho. But they're so different.
Yeah. You read quite a bit about Ann Radcliffe and her life.
I did. First of all, she's English, similar to Horace, our dear friend Horace. And also similar to Horace, she had never been to the places she wrote about. Primarily Italy.
Yes, this story also takes place in Italy, also a medieval setting.
Yeah, it's like the 1500 something.
Right.
Yeah, so she'd never actually been to any of those places. She read travel books and then put details in her books from those. So she caught a bit of criticism at the time for having things that didn't make sense because she'd never been there, apparently. We all do that. Especially modern writers, you get on Google.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's very similar to just like researching, isn't it?
Yeah, just different sources. So yes, that's the similarity between her and Horace that I thought was kind of interesting. And she also, like Horace, her family was well off. Not nobility, precisely. But her father had business partners. He owned haberdashery.
Oh, what's that mean?
Hats.
Oh, okay.
Make hat. Very good word. And then later, he also managed like a china shop, something like that. He had business partners, and his business partners were like, hey, move to the city and manage the shop. He was like, okay, cool. So also well off, she married another well off person of the genteel lifestyle.
So I'm getting like upper merchant class.
Essentially, had the money to faff about. So when she married her husband, he was originally going to be a lawyer, and then he's like, I don't want to do that. So then he went on and became a journalist, and he worked at a couple newspapers, he owned a couple newspapers, blah, blah, blah. And so he encouraged her writing. She was able to write and publish with a husband, which, again, I feel like for the time, having that kind of freedom is not super common. No. Women publishing in general was not super common.
No, a lot of them had to use pseudonyms.
Yes.
And not let it be known to the general public the true author of the work.
Although her first couple books were published anonymously. The one that started getting real attention was called Romance of the Forest. In a later edition of that, they put her name on it. First edition, it was anonymous, but then it got popular. So then they associated it with her. And so then after that, when Mysteries of Udolpho came out, people went crazy for it. She also got paid hella money for this book.
Nice.
From what I was reading, she got paid £500 for the manuscript, for the copyright, which was astronomically more than the average for a manuscript at that time. Hugely popular.
So now I'm wondering what that would be today.
Ooh, we can find that out.
Should we find out?
Let's see, let's see, 1790 pound inflation.
We're also going to have to convert it to dollars for it to make any sense to us North Americans.
Yeah, but that'll be easy once I figure out. Okay, value, £500, calculate. Well, according to this inflation calculator I just found, I've no idea how accurate this is. £500 in 1790 is worth £94,000 today.
Can we convert that to US dollars?
Yes. Okay, let's see. Pound to dollar. That's $120,000 US dollars.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. You know what? And it makes sense because she got £500 for this.
That was just for the manuscript, so that was just like an advance payment.
Yeah, that was for the copyright. And then the one she published after this, the Italian, she got £800. Actually, that makes sense that it was so much money because, from what I was reading, her husband then retired. Because they were like, we got money, you don't need to work, I'm gonna retire.
They were living the dream.
And she stopped writing. After the Italian, she stopped writing novels and she was just writing poetry, which wasn't as well received, people didn't really like it. But she stopped publishing, she's like, I made my money.
She quit while she was ahead.
She did, which also led to some speculation, because I think this was probably fueled by the fact that she came out with these two bangers, super popular, and then she stopped writing. People were like, oh my god, what happened to her? And I think they were reading a little bit too much Gothic, because this rumor started that the reason she stopped writing was that she actually became a shut-in and completely left the public eye because she lost her mind. She went mad from writing. Her writing drove her to madness.
The most Gothic consequence of writing Gothic fiction.
Yeah, no, it's pretty metal. And this was also furthered by this guy who wrote a memoir, and he supposedly got her doctor to talk to him, and supposedly the doctor said that she was mad. This was false.
Supposedly. I like how we had...
Allegedly.
I like how we had tabloids back then.
But you can prove that this was incorrect, because there are contemporary sources of the time, mainly the one that I was reading about was the New Monthly Magazine, that talked about Ann Radcliffe. She was an active housewife. She ran her household. She went to church every single Sunday. When it was nice, she went for walks in Hyde Park. She went to the theater. She enjoyed the opera. So you very easy to prove that that's false. However, did tabloids exist? Yes. They were not super current, up to date. Things took a little while to percolate. So I think that's how the rumor spread, because that's way more interesting than just she lived a happy life.
Especially given the content of her books.
Very gothic rumor, but she had a normal life. Normal happy life. She passed away from pneumonia at 54, which is sad and kind of young. So yeah, so rather mundane life. Kind of like Horace. Kind of a mundane life, but wrote these fantastical, very important works.
We had used, or I should say you had used, because you created the plot structure kind of outline that we talked about in one of our chit-chats.
Yes.
But now we can go a little more in-depth into how exactly you pulled that plot structure from this book in particular.
So I have in front of me, well, we have the book and our notes, but my very official gothic plot structure, which I did look at a couple of different stories. I looked at this, I looked at Otranto, and I think I looked at The Monk too.
A fantastic piece of literature.
Yes, we will also be talking about that. Well, we've talked about that in previous.
We've talked about The Monk so much. Will it warrant a whole other discussion? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Well, we are planning on talking about another of Ann Radcliffe's works, which was a response to The Monk.
That's right.
So we will discuss it.
We'll get to it eventually.
But I did primarily base it, because this book, I think, is just so
quintessentially
melodramatic. Quintessentially gothic. I mean, gothic is basically just think about a modern soap opera that your mom watched or your grandma, whatever, daytime TV, super dramatic. People be dying and coming back to life, and people got long lost brothers and sons and all this stuff. It's basically a soap opera, but with spooky castles and ghosts and...
Accurate.
So we're gonna go through my lovingly crafted plot structure and talk about how I got that from Udolpho.
Excellent.
So, the first part of the Gothic plot structure. Introduction of characters and a hint of mystery lay the foundation for intrigue and/or tragedy.
Udolpho opens up at La Vallée, which is in Gascony, France, with the Saint-Aubert family.
Very good, very pure.
It spent a lot of time telling us about how good they all were.
A long time.
Emily, the daughter, her parents, very good people. Her father has a love of nostalgia, and he hates change, which was impressed upon us quite a bit. He dislikes change so much he wouldn't let them cut down a tree.
That's intense.
Very good parents, loving daughter, happy family. Until they have a little, I guess it's kind of like a little, not a vacation house, but they call it a fishing house. And Emily goes back to it during one of their daily outings, and she hears something.
Something
mysterious. She hears some mysterious singing, and as she enters the fishing house, there's some writing. There's a little sonnet written by an unknown hand. Well, that's pretty weird.
It is pretty weird.
And then later, we come to find out that Emily's mother had a bracelet that had a miniature portrait of Emily attached to it, and that is missing.
Dun dun dun!
So there's been a thief about.
Yeah, so we're laying the foundation for intrigue.
There's our intrigue. And then we very soon also get to the tragedy.
Yes. Emily's mother, R.I.P.
Yeah, she dies.
She does.
Very shortly into the book.
Very common trope among many genres of literature for the mother to die. Fairy tales, gothic,
anime,
Disney movies. Anyways, that's a topic for another time. That's our first tragedy.
No, it's first tragedy.
Yes, very important. I said first tragedy. Unlike what we think of as a modern story structure, there's no uphill, reach the crescent, and then downhill falling action. It's all over. So then after the first tragedy, we have the destitution / fumbling about / woe portion, which consists of Emily and her father.
Yeah, they decide to go on a journey because Emily's father is also now in failing health.
Yes, he is now ailing, he is sick.
So they're gonna take a trip to the Mediterranean for some fresh air. They don't quite get there.
Before they leave, isn't that when he has the portrait, the little miniature that he's lamenting to?
Oh, yes.
We have to stick that in there, because that's going to be important later.
This is, so more building intrigue. Emily happens to see her father weeping while holding another, there's a lot of miniatures in this story.
Yeah.
It's another miniature portrait of a woman, and that woman is not Emily's mother.
Scandalous.
So she's very confused about A, why he has a picture of another woman, and B, why is he so emotional about this other woman who's not his wife.
His wife who also just died.
And yeah, another big mystery that we set up. The journey is quite fumbly, isn't it? They run into a few problems and they are helped by a young man. Valancourt, yes. He is introduced to us as like a young huntsman.
Strapping. He's a strapping young man.
Of course. And he helps them find shelter, and he accompanies them for part of their journey.
Then, after we have all this, the woe and the fumbling about and the intrigue, we have another tragedy.
Oh dear.
And in this case, that is the demise of dear old Dad.
This was genuinely sad.
It was.
Emily's mother passing away was a bit of like a, oh my goodness. It was a little shocking. Emily's father passing away, because he kind of lingered on. Like, we knew kind of he was sick. We knew he wasn't really getting better. But we ended up in this village with the two of them. And they were...
he can't, like, he's too sick to travel, essentially.
Yeah, and they're taken in by...
He was like a hunter, wasn't he?
Yeah, just like two of the villagers. But we've
Mm-hmm.
also set up more mystery.
Because in this village is adjacent to a mysterious castle.
A mysterious, abandoned castle. There's more mysterious singing.
This is my favorite part of the radio play. There's a radio play on YouTube that we both listen to. Because the voice actor that does the village person who's talking about it is like, oh yeah, I tried to follow it once. I didn't get anywhere. The way he says it is just really funny to me.
More mysterious singing. Emily's father appears to know something of the former inhabitants of this castle. But he just kind of, brushes it off, won't really elaborate, won't explain what his connection is, aside from he knew of them.
Yeah, you know what? Gothic literature wouldn't exist if people communicated. A lot of the plot of this book in particular is hinging on the fact that her father does not tell Emily anything relevant to anything.
No. And on top of that, before he dies, he tells her to find some hidden papers in his hidden closet room. Burn them and don't look at them.
Yeah, which, that is a soap opera. Like, how dramatic can you be? On your deathbed, your dying wish is, can you please burn my secrets? And this is back in the day when, if you burn them, they didn't exist. They'd gone, poof, lost to the ether.
Right.
It's between you and God now.
Emily is such a good and loyal daughter. And she does it. She takes the papers and she accidentally sees a word. And that word is murder.
One singular word. Now, this is where Emily lost me a little bit. I was like, come on, girl. We got the same name. I'm rooting for you. But you didn't read it.
She didn't. She threw it in the fire without reading, even though there was clearly something in that.
All she sees is the word murder, and then poof, gone. But
also among those papers was that miniature portrait of the mysterious woman that was not her mother.
That she keeps.
That will be important later.
That is a plot device. We'll stick that in our back pocket and come back to it.
After her father passes away, Emily is left to her aunt.
So we've reached the portion where in the plot device, we didn't have a fight. I have it in my Gothic outline after the tragedy. I have a fight or confrontation. That's kind of the deathbed confession. Finding the papers. We get some answers, but not really.
No, we haven't answered anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Emily and her aunt don't really hit it off when they first meet each other.
No, her aunt's kind of a bitch.
But yeah, Madame Chiron isn't very nice.
And I don't think, we're not supposed to think she's nice. We're not supposed to like her.
No.
She's kind of like the evil stepmother trope, except an aunt.
Yeah, that's exactly what she is at this point in the story.
Yeah, so she comes in and she's kind of, I don't know if spinster is the right word, but she wants a man. She needs to get married. She's got no money.
Well, she does.
She does.
She has property in Toulouse.
But she has no man.
Correct. No children.
Just Emily now.
Yep, that she's had dumped upon her.
She's cramping her style.
It's a little bit of a conflict that we're introduced to there. Because we know right away that Madame Chiron is going to be an antagonist. Especially because at this point, Emily has expressed her desire to marry Valancourt. Madame Chiron doesn't know who he is, she doesn't know his family, she doesn't think he's good enough, and says no.
Also, in my reading about Ann Radcliffe, apparently when it was published as 4 volumes, and it did not say, where it was divided, but I feel like maybe that whole first part, like up until the deathbed confession maybe, or maybe when she burns the papers, that must have been 1 volume, because that's enough to fill its own book. It's like its own plot.
That makes sense to me.
And then we get into this part, and this is the thing about longer form goth, is you've almost got multiple books in one. Like, that's how many conflicts arise, that's how many tragedies that you encounter. So we've got one hump, and now we're getting into the next hump, which is Emily wants to marry Valancourt. She's with her aunt. Valancourt isn't rich or powerful, so her aunt's like, nah, you can't marry him. So this is kind of our next conflict here, which could be its own book, again. Then we start getting into the crux, the main conflict. We're almost at Udolpho. We're almost there.
Yeah, so what is the next plot point in the list?
Well, here I have plot twist and tragedy and or intrigue. Again, this is largely based on Udolpho, but I did boil it down from a couple different stories.
I think at this point, because we have a little bit of just a day in the life with Madame Chiron for a while, right? She's trying to still kind of figure out how she can convince her to let her marry Valancourt. We are introduced to Signor Montoni, who's an Italian aristocrat. I think at first, maybe we don't really think too much of him. He's just... There's a couple other signors that are hanging about, because we're hanging out with upper society now and going to balls and all this fun stuff. But then we find out that Signor Montoni and Madame Chiron are going to marry. So I think that was a little bit of a twist. We also have this whole bit where Madame Chiron learns more about Valancourt, initially gives her blessing. It looks like everything is going to go great.
Everyone's getting married, everyone's happy.
Then Montoni ruins everything.
He then becomes a villain.
The villain.
Yes. Capital T, capital V, the villain.
So he forces Emily to break off her engagement. We don't know why. So here's another mystery. Why he's so opposed to this marriage.
We don't know
At
yet.
this point. We're setting up more mysteries.
This is a mystery. You could also call it a tragedy. Emily's heartbroken.
Yeah.
She can't marry her love. Also playing into the kind of evil step-parent trope. Now you've got the evil stepmom and her evil husband manipulating Emily and controlling her life because she was a woman in the 1500s and had no rights.
What's next?
Now we're fumbling about.
Would we want to put our arrival at Udolpho in the fumbling about portion?
I feel like she fumbles about in that castle a fair bit.
When we arrive at Udolpho. We have been told that Signor Montoni lives in a grand castle, right?
Yes.
We believe that Madame Chiron has married him for his riches.
We believe that. However,
when we see Udolpho for the first time,
not so.
That's not what it is. It's neglected.
It's your quintessential Gothic castle.
It's crumbling, it's dusty, it's full of cobwebs, it's dark and damp. It's not very nice.
Oh, there are mysterious goings on there as well.
Emily and her servant, Annette, get lost in the castle.
That's how you know it's a good, haunted, creepy castle, when you can get lost.
Udolpho also has a lot of stories about it being haunted. primarily by the Lady Laurentini, a ghost who wanders the turrets singing.
Again with the singing. When you think about it, though, I feel like, obviously, she's playing on this idea of haunting and ghosts and stuff like that. When you look at it from a logical, earthly lens, the wind through things can kind of sound like singing sometimes. It can make whistling sounds, it can make moaning sounds, it can sound very human. So I feel like if you're reading this book in the 1790s when it's published, you can hear those sounds in your head. Like, you've heard similar things in a forest on a dark, stormy night, or outside your house, and you're like, oh my god. You can put yourself in those shoes, and it's creepy.
I would imagine, too, when you're in a dark castle, which is a very big space, your mind starts to fill in the empty corners of the room.
Scurrying creatures that make noise.
Mm-hmm.
Very good at setting the scene.
We also have another senior who's trying to marry Emily through this whole time.
Oh, yeah, it's another M name.
Yeah. If I open the book, I'll probably see it.
Murano. There it is.
I literally just opened the book and looked. This. Okay, so this book, someone made notes in it. It says Montani versus Murano on the page that I opened up to.
Genius. The literature gods are on our side today.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, but those names are so easy to confuse.
Murano is interested in Emily. She's not interested in him at all.
Unfortunately for Emily, Murano and Montoni have a relationship. Not as in
he's just like a nuisance the entire time.
Yes, he becomes another villain. We keep getting more villains.
Yes.
Although the aunt at this point, now that they're in the castle, the aunt isn't.
She's still not very nice, but
no.
I guess we're all in this together now. Right. What's our next plot point?
Now our next plot point is getting some answers to some mysteries, but we're not out of the dark yet. And we're also going to need another tragedy, which comes in the form of memory serves.
Here's some answers for you, or I should say some false answers. While Emily and Annette are lost, they come across a room and see a black veil.
Oh my god, how did I forget about this part?
You can't, this is crucial.
I don't know how I forgot about this part. It's like the coolest part of the book.
So, Emily gathers up her nerve and she lifts the veil, and underneath the veil is a corpse.
Dun dun dun.
Oh my goodness, is this the body of the Lady Laurentini, whose ghost wanders the turrets?
I like the description too, because the way they describe it is like, it's like horrors beyond your comprehension.
I mean, it is a little beyond my comprehension when we find out what it actually is. Because remember, everything in this has a real world explanation.
Yes.
This is not actually a corpse. It's a wax figure. But what's beyond my comprehension is why did Montoni have a wax figure of the Lady Laurentini?
Yeah, I guess it is better than having an actual rotting, decomposing body, but not by much. Like, it's still creepy. It's still weird.
It's weird.
It's super weird.
It's especially because we know from the stories that they did not marry. That's like the whole crux of all his pain, his rage, right? Is because he couldn't marry this woman, so he just has a statue of her instead. It's weird. The more I think about it, the weirder it gets. Because it's not like a stone statue; it's a wax figure.
See, I almost feel like it makes that's too real.
It's still weird. That's not really an answer, but we kind of get an idea. So like I said, it's a red herring. We now think that Montoni murdered Lady Laurentini. We have now ideas about Montoni that we think are answering questions. We don't know that they're not yet. Especially because we're going to find out that Montoni and Emily's aunt, formerly known as Madame Chiron, have been arguing this entire time. Because Montoni wants Madame Chiron to sign over basically all her property and possessions to him, and she's been refusing.
Plot twist. He's a gold digger, not the other way around.
And Emily finds out about this then her aunt disappears. And she thinks that her aunt is dead for a while. And she goes to look for her in the south turret where she's supposedly been imprisoned and sees blood upon the staircase and thinks she's been murdered as well.
I mean, honestly, if you thought you found a dead body, it's not that far. Like, pretty not logical assumption to make, but I would make that leap. It's not a big leap.
Yeah, especially given the violence of the arguments that we'd seen. And we do believe that Montoni is capable of this. We also start to get hints that he's involved in some illegal activities. He's almost got like a gang.
Well, yeah, because they talk about he's got like these mercenaries that raid.
Yeah, and he's actually been like going at it with like the Italian and the French military.
He's like a bandit lord, almost like a pirate but on land, so not as cool.
So there have been soldiers going in and out of the castle as well. And there are soldiers imprisoned in the dungeons of the castle because of his bandits, like, actually physically fighting with the army. We were supposed to be answering questions here, we just laid up more mysteries.
Well, basically, this book, a lot of it is, you think you've gotten all the plot wrong, here's more plot, here's more plot, here's another subplot.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts in this book.
Yeah, and I think, like, with my Gothic plot structure, there's basically, like, you could copy and paste as many of these middle bits as you want to make a Gothic novel. That's like, what Ann Radcliffe did. Like, just repeat the pattern of tragedy, confrontation, there's fumbling about, there's woe, you get a little bit of answers, you get a little bit of something, okay, we're making progress, more woe, plot twist, tragedy, fumbling about, answers, plot twist, somebody dies, somebody comes back from the dead, tragedy, woe, fumbling about. Like, you can remix those, just keep putting them down. You've got a Gothic novel.
So like you were saying before, where the usual plot structure is like an up, we're reaching towards the climax, but we've got a mountain range.
Yes, and there's some little foothills, there's some big Everests, there's crevasses.
And since this was originally divided into different parts, and each part is not really self-contained, but it has its own kind of story arc.
Yeah, you've got the beginning, the idyllic life that then ends with a tragic death and the introduction of a mystery. And then you've got the second part where you've got like society life, the balls and all this stuff, and leading up to the wedding and moving to the castle. And then in the castle, you've got the haunted castle plot. Like the ghosts and the singing and the dead body. And oh my god, my aunt's missing, she's been murdered. Like, they're it just keeps going.
There is a scene where we do get some answers. And it involves more singing.
You know what? It said that Ann Radcliffe was a really big fan of the opera.
I believe it.
She really does like to put the singing in her novels.
We hear from the dungeons, from where these soldiers are being kept, some more singing. They call out to it. Mm-hmm. And then it responds, so it's a person, right? It's not a ghost. There's someone there. Emily starts to think, and this is, I think, a lot also at the suggestion of Annette, that is Valancourt. Valancourt, because we didn't really talk too much about him, what he's been doing after the engagement broke off.
Oh yeah, he's off doing his own plot.
He went and he joined the military.
And he went to Paris.
So he became a knight. They think, well, there's all these soldiers in here. Maybe he became a prisoner here, and that's why he sounds so familiar. Emily does think this voice sounds familiar. She's heard it before. They ask for an arrangement with Annette. Annette has her own little, like, sub-romance. It's like when you have
the servant subplot.
Yeah, like, when you're watching a K-drama and you have, like, the primary couple, and then you have the secondary couple. Annette and Ludovico are the secondary couple. She has Ludovico arrange a meeting with the prisoner. Prisoner is not Valancourt, but he is someone who knows Emily. And he explains, first, his name is Dupont. He's also from Gascony. Where he lived is not far from La Vallée, where the Saint-Auberts lived. And we find out that it was him who was singing at the fishing house and who stole the bracelet with Emily's portrait. So he also has a thing for Emily.
Yeah, my God, girl.
Everyone's in love with Emily.
And everyone's also weird and creepy and a stalker.
Yeah, that was a little weird of him to steal the bracelet, but he's gonna make it up to them.
Busting out of this joint.
But there was, like, sword fighting.
Yeah, it got really exciting.
People getting stabbed. Because now we have all these soldiers in the place. We have the bandits. We have them going to break out. Emily had more than one escape attempt.
The other M guy, Murano?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he try to kidnap her?
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over that.
We did, because, like I said, he was just really annoying.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to think back through the plot of this book, I realized that I didn't remember a whole lot of the middle.
Well, you know that there's a lot of other cool stuff happening when the kidnapping attempt is just like, meh. Like, this, like, it happens, it's one of the plot points, the woe, the tragedy, the fight. But it's like I said, it's not interesting. There's
so much going on here.
Yeah, but I just thought we should mention it before the sword fighting, this exciting venture almost get kidnapped, and then that was stopped, and she was not kidnapped.
And then they were out of the castle, and then she ended up back in the castle. And then her aunt did pass away, which is another significant tragedy in the plot.
Yes, but also very important to note, her husband was like, you gotta sign those papers, you gotta give me all your land, you gotta will it to me, and her aunt's like, no.
And what'd she do instead?
Die and give it all to Emily.
She gave it all to Emily. And they made up.
They do. It was very, like, again, we get another deathbed confessional. They, repent, they make up, and then she dies. Also seen a lot in Russian literature. I feel like that's such a fatalistic way of looking at the world. Like, you repent, you get this epiphany about life, the meaning of life, and whatever, and then you die.
Any combination of fumbling about, tragedy, intrigue, just take those three things. Keep doing it.
Yeah, just
mix and match.
Put them in a hat.
Remix.
Pro writing tip. If you want to write a gothic, just put all the elements into a hat, and whenever you get stuck, or you finish a scene you don't know what should happen next, pull one out.
That's not a bad idea.
No, you've
just like kidnapping, put it in the hat. Mysterious death, put it in the hat. Disappearance, put it in the hat.
A ghost, ?
Put it in the hat. Disembodied singing.
Put it in the hat. Dead body and or wax figure? Hat.
Put it foiled escape attempt. Put it in there.
Helmet falling from the sky.
Just throw it in there. Soldiers sword fighting through the halls of your castle.
Put it in there.
Mistaken identity.
Someone coming back from the dead.
Put it in there.
Put it in everything. Literally anything you could think of. Put it in there.
This book sure did.
Oh yeah. Everything but the kitchen sink. You don't know how at first, but then as things go along, they kind of call back.
We do get resolutions.
We do.
But we spend a lot of time just kind of letting them stew. It's like a slow cooker.
Going back to the beginning with her father and the mysterious miniature that's not his wife that he cries over. We come to find out later that it's his sister who was murdered. But, that is so far removed from everything that happens in the actual titular castle of Udolpho.
Right, the stuff that happens with Emily's dad, and then the village, and then the castle that was abandoned near the village, and then the stuff that happens with the end, those things are connected. Should we move on to the next plot point?
Yes.
Since I think our last one was some answers, more intrigue, more...
Gasp, another plot twist.
Another twist! This is probably where
the Valancourt.
We're getting back to the little village and the abandoned castle. Emily does manage to escape.
Finally. With help.
We end up back in the village where her father passed away because she wanted to visit his grave again before going back home. Because we have been in Italy now this whole time. And we need to go back to France. This is where we get a lot of answers.
Exposition.
About the castle and stuff. Let me see. Plot twist, things become clear, revelation. Yeah, okay, we're basically gearing towards the end. So, castle was inhabited by the Marquis de Villeroy and the Marchioness. And it's now been taken over by a new family. But while Emily is there, she learns about what happened to the Marquis.
And remember, there was a word she saw in those letters she wasn't supposed to read, and that word was murder.
I mean, this does involve Udolpho because it involves Montoni.
Yes, Montoni comes back.
Not physically,
No.
but in spirit. Because we also find out that he's been done in by the Italian army.
Good riddance.
But he had been part of this, like, love web
Quadrangle.
entanglement with the Lady Laurentini. So he loved her.
Mm-hmm.
She loved the Marquis. The Marquis married Emily's aunt. She didn't know about.
Her father's sister. That
But
we're just learning about now.
the Marquis and the Lady Laurentini together conspired to murder Emily's aunt. And they succeeded.
Hence why Emily saw her father crying over this portrait of the lady, aka his sister.
They immediately regretted.
Very Shakespearean, very
Yes.
Macbeth.
The Marquis marqueed off to somewhere.
Yeah, he's not important.
But the Lady Laurentini dedicated herself to the convent, and she became Sister Agnes.
Who we met earlier.
We had met Sister Agnes earlier. Sister Agnes, by this point in the story, is on her deathbed. Another deathbed. We don't quite... It's not a very, like, clear confession here, because she's not able to articulate fully. But she hints at, murder and involvement, and then Emily learns that Sister Agnes was Lady Laurentini, who had conspired with the Marquis to murder the Marquis' wife.
So that's how that all ties together.
Valancourt makes a return.
The hero!
Well,
But we got another fumbling and woe.
Yeah, we had to sneak another one. We're getting a lot of answers, but we're not completely there yet. So Emily learns from the new Marquis from this castle. Valancourt has gambled himself to ruin, and he's fallen in with the wrong crowd.
He went to prison.
He was with bandits, thieves.
We thought he was a strapping young man. Turns out he's a scoundrel.
Oh my goodness. But then we learn that that wasn't true, and he was just trying to help his friends. He wasn't involved with bandits after all.
That was propaganda.
Our next plot point was answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
Everything becomes clear.
We find out all the answers. We find out that the love of our life, who we were like, no, we can't marry you. You're poor and a criminal. But then we find out, oh, actually, he's a good guy. So we can get married now.
We've learned the secret of Emily's dad. We've learned who the identity of the wax figure was not a corpse.
We've solved the mystery of the disembodied singing on all fronts.
Yep, we solved the missing bracelet mystery.
I think that's all the mysteries.
Was that all? I feel like we set up so many.
There were so many.
It feels like it should be more. I guess those were the important ones.
Yeah, and so then Emily and Valancourt get married.
Mm-hmm. So last plot point.
Last plot point, very important. People get what they deserve. Good people get good endings. Bad people get a bad ending, usually death.
Montoni, as I said earlier, gets done in once and for all by the Italian army. Sister Agnes, who had committed murder, dies. Madame Chiron, who was nasty and cruel for much of the story, has died.
They all repent before they die as well.
They do. Emily inherits Madame Chiron's property, and also from Lady Laurentini.
Yes.
Because, having repented, she wanted to make it up, I guess, to the Marchioness's family by leaving her surviving family member with what she had.
Yeah, so, all in all, kind of a happy ending.
Yep, and Emily and Valancourt get married, and they go back to La Vallée, and they live happily ever after.
The end.
That actually is an exceptionally happy end for
a gothic.
For a gothic, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a tragedy.
No, this one is definitely a romance.
Yeah, like that, and that's the thing. I think in Otranto you have those romance elements, and they are a key point of the plot, but it's not the point. Like, the point isn't the romance. The point is that kind of revenge / get what's due kind of karma idea.
Ancient prophecies.
Yeah, the romance is just there to be like, oh yay, people love romance. Subplot.
That's what this book did not have, prophecies. That's what this was missing.
That's true. Yeah, a prophecy would have been too supernatural.
That's true. In the end, nothing supernatural happened in this book. There were no ghosts.
No ghosts, no mysterious enchanted castles, no nothing. Just good old-fashioned greed and murder.
Human folly.
Yeah, nefarious plots. That was it.
I mean, we had enough of that. I don't think we needed anything else.
So that was the tale of the Mysteries of Udolpho.
Along with our
color commentary.
Color commentary and gothic plot structure.
Again, literally any of these plot points, you just
mix and match.
And you've got yourself a gothic. It took a long time for her to get up here.
Someone beckons.
Alright, well, we gotta go.
Well, we'll wrap it up.
Goodbye, Internet. We'll see you on the next episode
next time.
of The Podcastle.
Bye.
Bye.